I'm so tired of hearing it. I heard it twice this morning, and then I'm just going to basically tell you about me anyway. So we are talking about how to drive donor engagement with social media. This is not a very interactive session. It's going to be a lot of stuff thrown at you, but if you have questions, just, throw up your hand, and I will do my best to answer them, and we'll talk about pretty much anything you want regarding digital marketing and social media. So actually, how many of you are responsible for marketing and fundraising in your organization? Yeah, okay. Those my people right there. So I missed Jason's talk because I had to take a phone call, but I know that he talks a lot about how marketing and fundraising need to be completely separate, and I completely agree with him. The problem is that's not the reality for a lot of us. So today I am going to talk about a lot of lane one, like how to do donor acquisition and how to do donor retention with social media. So who am I? I am from Boston. I am a mom of two. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer. Usually I have some fellow Peace Corps volunteers in the room with me when I'm around nonprofits. I'm also one of those former development/marketing people / duties as assigned / volunteer outreach social media, like blowing up of balloons and putting them in the car for the gala, that kind of thing. So I completely understand where you're coming from, and I know that you want to leave with tactical, practical information and not a lot of fluff. So I'm going to respect that today. I wrote a book, so I'd be remiss if I didn't promote it, because we're all promoting our books, right? So I have 6 more copies of it, and I don't want to bring them home, just like Jason said. These are $25, and I have a square if you want one. If not, they are available on Amazon, but they're a lot more expensive. So if you don't want to give Jeff Bezos your money, then get it through me. I'm also very passionate about digital tools and the possibility of digital tools to change the world, change hearts and minds. And if you're on Twitter, make sure you're using the hashtag fundraisingday, WI. And I don't mind, I'm not going to tell you to put your phones away. That would be silly in a social media session. Just try to keep them on silent, just for everybody else's consideration. But if you want to take pictures, you want to tweet, whatever you want to do, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to have you do that. I have a workbook that goes with this session, that goes with my other session on the art of storytelling. So if you just text the word workbook 345345, I'll put it up again at the end, and enter your email. Make sure your email's entered correctly, and then you'll get the PDF sent right to you. So if you're interested in diving a little bit deeper into some of the concepts that we're going to talk about today. All right, so I won't go too much into the nitty-gritty of statistics and data because that's boring, and it's also after lunch, but I will give you a little bit of an overview and answer some questions that I get pretty frequently, and then we'll do my 3-part social media marketing framework. We're going to go over some tools. I have a lot of examples that I share, and they might be kind of hard to see. Oh, that's the other thing I should say. Jen and Lisa are going to send out all the slides, and I have a worksheet that matches up with the framework that I'm going to send to you. Save trees, print it out, put it in your Google Docs. So you'll get all of that after the conference. So don't worry about that. So what does the social media landscape look like entering 2020? Why is it important for nonprofits? A question I get all the time: are people leaving Facebook? Are people still really using social media? Yes. So the answer is yes. If you want detailed statistics on demographics and usage, then go to pewinternet.org. That's P-E-W internet.org. They release studies every year. They actually dive deep into mobile technology. They dive deep into age groups and demographics. But the reality with social media, the kind of mindset that I want us to get in, is that it's not a to-do on your to-do list. And it's not like a shiny new tool, shiny new object. It's basically a complete revolution in human communication and the way we seek out information. So when we talk about social media, we really can't talk about it if we're not talking about it in the context of how humans are processing information and what we're sharing, how we're expressing our identities, and how we're connecting with others, like causes and brands and people. So don't think you can just put All right, social media, crossed it off on my to-do list because as we know, the beast is always hungry for new content, but also these platforms are always changing, evolving, adapting, and moving in different directions. One's popular today, it might not be popular tomorrow. Young people are still using it. Baby boomers are using it. So if your boss says, or if you're the boss and you think this, our donors are older, they're not on social media, that's not necessarily true. So younger people are on it, older people are on it. It really spans across decades. It does depend on how many times a day they access it and the kinds of things they share. But I really wouldn't write off baby boomers. In terms of giving, people are saying that social media inspires them to give. They've seen something on social, their friend posted something, they saw a news article, they saw something from a nonprofit. It inspired them in some way to give. This is a great report, the 2018 Global Trends in Giving survey. And of those donors, they say that Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter have inspired them. So donors have been polled and they have said that it does work for giving. Of course, we've all seen a Facebook fundraiser. So I'm going to ask you a question. So let me ask you a question. Have you run or have you donated to anyone's Facebook fundraiser on Facebook? Yes. Okay. So when I see a Facebook fundraiser, I donate. It's like a weird tick I have. It's like I have to do it. I absolutely love the idea of normal people who are not fundraisers raising money for causes. It's so cool. So it's like all my friends who, some of them are pretty cynical, some of them don't know what I do. They don't know what nonprofits do. They don't understand fundraising. They don't understand philanthropy, but they are donating their birthday. They're getting excited. Rather than, two friends are adopting a baby and they already have all the stuff that they need. So they wanted to do a fundraiser for the foster care agency where they adopted the child. And it's becoming normalized and it's making giving accessible to people that it may not have been accessible to before. So it's a complete mindset shift and I like it. We also have to understand why people use social media because they don't use it to come to our events. They don't use it to read, about our promotions and our press releases and whatever messages we're pushing out. They go there to connect with family and friends. They go there to read stories. They go there to share about their day, learn about things, share views and opinions on topics. So if you look at these reasons why people use social media, they're kind of narcissistic. They're all very much like, what can social media do for me? And that's where people are coming from. So what we need to start thinking about is, what can we do for our donors on social? This is also a really great book about the history of advertising and grabbing attention and almost like manipulating people's attention all through the printing press and posters, from TV ads, radio ads, up to the internet age. And we have to understand how much information is being thrown at our donors on a daily basis. I mean, we all know how much information is being thrown at ourselves on a daily basis, but we are not the top priority in our donors' life necessarily. And also, we don't have control over these channels. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of them, they are corporations and they answer to only one thing. They answer to their shareholders. They do not answer to us. They do not even answer to their users. Their users are not their top priority either. So we can certainly leverage the strengths of social media, but we do need to understand that Facebook can pull the rug out from under us at any moment, which it often does. Instagram can change, Twitter can change. So just to have just a little bit of a reality check. Where do we stand in terms of relating this back to fundraising and donor retention? Donors are disappearing. Now, I'm primarily concerned with total number of donors. So the two statistics that I measure, I like to measure new donors and I like to measure smaller gift donors. So major gifts is not my lane. Like, I love major gifts, I think they're great, but it's just not my expertise. I want to look out for the little donor that could become the major donor, and those people are disappearing. And I think that social media is a great opportunity to bring them back in the fold and to get more people excited about philanthropy. So while charitable giving is up, the number of donors has actually decreased. And then smaller donors, gifts of less than $250, has dramatically decreased and is going down. And that's worrisome to me. I think that's really worrisome. We live by these bread and butter $25 a month, $100 a year donors. A lot of our organizations were built with these donors, and then they might become larger donors. But we just can't ignore them as a group. So we'll talk about why and how today. So why do donors stop giving? I mean, we know. This is all based on research. And this is Dr. Adrian Sargent, who Mark referenced in his keynote. So we know why they stop giving. Now, we can't control two of these things. We can't control death, and we can't control could no longer afford. We can mostly in our communications and the way that we interact with donors control the rest of the situation, the rest of the pie. And then we need to know why donors keep giving. So when we talk about the three-part social media framework, every piece of content that you post should be addressing one of these key drivers. So if you ever don't know what to post, you're going to print this slide out and you're going to put it by your desk and you're going to say, this is what we're communicating. Perceives organization to be effective, right? We have to show that we're effective, that we are credible. We have to let people know what to expect. So that means if they sign up for the email list and you say, we're going to send you a weekly patient story every month, every week, and then you don't email them for 6 months, or if you post on Instagram every day and then you just don't show up anymore. I mean, donors like to know what to expect from you. Also, receiving a timely thank you. Social media is perfect for targeting new donors. We'll talk about how to use social ads to do that, but expressing gratitude, it's a great place to do that because people love to hear that. Opportunities to make views known. They want to give feedback. They want you to make yourself accessible to them. They want to be heard. They want their views to be known. And let's see, donor feels like they're part of an important cause. So this is different than this is different than number one. So number one is they need to know that you as an organization are effective. And this one means the cause is important. So is this a problem? Is this something that I need to pay attention to? Is it timely? Is it relevant? Is it urgent? Why now? Kivula Romillo wrote a fantastic blog post at nonprofitmarketingguide.com, and it's called So What, Who Cares? And she says every time you communicate with a donor, it should be so what, who cares? Why now? Why are you sending this now? Why is this important? And what's going to make someone care about it? They need to feel that their involvement is appreciated. That doesn't mean you have to send them a handwritten thank you and call them on the phone and send them a t-shirt and send them all this swag. It just means that they need to feel like their gift meant something, right? And then receiving information on who is being helped. Social media is perfect for that. So I love these 7 drivers, and I think there's your content creation plan right there, but we're going to dive deeper into a few of them. I also think we have a responsibility to almost take back digital and make it a more interesting and positive and hopeful place. But I really believe that we have a duty to make our donors partners and to really treat them like investors that are investing in a cause, and they need to get constant and frequent updates on what their investment is doing. So my 3-part social media marketing framework. Clarify, which means identify your destination, and then you need to figure out who you got to bring on board to reach that destination. Then captivate, which is collecting and crafting this content that your audience wants, and we'll go through each of these. And cultivate. So cultivate just means don't constantly be switching platforms. Don't go on Instagram for a week and then quit and then go back on it in 6 months. And you have to determine the posting cadence and frequency that works with your capacity, your organization, and your goals. But being consistent is really, really important. So we'll talk about that. So when I saw this comic, what's the big idea? Well, We're going to go on Pinterest. We'll go on digital. We'll just sign up for Snapchat. I don't know, whatever it is. But what are we going to do? I don't know. So I feel like this is 99% of the meetings that I have with clients where they start with the tools. They start with the tools and they come to me and they say, we need to be on Instagram. And I say, I have to walk them back like a million steps. Why? Why do you want to be on Instagram and why do you want to be on Instagram in particular? So we have to start thinking goals first, not tools first. So what are you trying to do on social media? What do you think it can do for you? What would success look like a year from now if you achieved everything that you wanted to achieve, right? What do you want people to do? What is the action you're trying to get people to take? And I really think it needs to go beyond raising awareness. I know raising awareness is probably like one of our number one goals, but this cartoon says it all. Our cat adoption numbers tanked this quarter, but our YouTube views were way up. So, right, awareness raised without action is not worth very much. So when you're building your roadmap with your goals, that's where you're going to really figure out what you want to accomplish. And I encourage you to go beyond raising awareness. Get even deeper. Why do you want to raise awareness? If awareness was raised, what would be possible? So dig a little bit deeper. Getting on Facebook, tweeting, get 10,000 Twitter followers, those are not goals, right? Those are tactics to get to your goals. So, don't say your goal is we want 10,000 Facebook fans. Think about what could 10,000 Facebook fans do for you? What's the benefit of that? What at the end of the day is going to happen at your organization if you accomplish that? The number 2 step of this first part of the framework is to identify your audience. And now I know we work with multiple audiences, but we have to find that thread that kind of connects all of the different audiences, and it's usually the cause and the mission. So what is everyone interested in? What unites all of these audiences? And it's usually not your organization per se, it's the cause. It's the issue that you're working on. So think about what your supporters really and truly value. What do they want to know more about? And you should talk to them. You can ask them what spurs you, what motivates you, what drives you. And then that is going to help you as you sort of laser focus your social media work. If you don't know your audience, you're not going to know what kind of content to create that's going to resonate with them. You also need to know the knowledge gaps that maybe you could fill. So not being preachy or making people feel stupid that they don't understand something, but what do they want to know more about? What are the frequently asked questions you receive all of the time? What are people always asking you? What are the misconceptions that you see out there? And I know in all of our missions, there are many myths and misconceptions no matter what we do. And how can we educate people about that? So this was a YouTube campaign that an organization did. They support children and families that have Down syndrome, or a family member has Down syndrome. And they wanted to create a storytelling series, but they didn't really want to do a storytelling series that was, this is Johnny, and this is Susie, and this is Larry, and this is this. They thought that was pretty boring. So they looked at the emails that they receive very frequently. And the number one email, the number one question that they get are usually from women and parents who have found out that they're going to have a child with Down syndrome. So their doctors just told them, they just found out. And they email this organization and they say, what do I do? What's the first thing I do? What can I expect? What's my child's life going to be like? What's my life going to be like? So they created a series of videos, this organization, answering that question. But every single child, every single young adult, every adult has a different perspective and a different answer to that question and a different story to tell. So it was really cool. They did another campaign where they looked at Google searches. So they went to YouTube and they went to Google. And this is not for the faint of heart to do this. And they Googled just the words Down syndrome to see what people were searching for with those words, because Google will fill it in, and YouTube will also fill it in or give you some suggested responses. And what they found was that people were searching for, can people with Down syndrome cook? Or can people with Down syndrome swim? Can people with Down syndrome get married? those kinds of things. And they created a whole series of videos answering those questions because they wanted to, first of all, dispel the myths and misconceptions, go to the top of the YouTube search engines. So think about what people are asking, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you don't like the questions that they're asking. What are they asking? Another example, I worked at a domestic violence shelter for several years, and there was a huge campaign to change the term domestic violence to intimate partner violence. And we were going to change all of our materials, our whole website, everything to say intimate partner violence. It's such a better description than domestic violence because you're not always living with the person that is being abusive. The problem is nobody searches intimate partner violence. No one outside the industry uses this term. So what I was making the argument, and I was saying, we might not like the term domestic violence, but do we want to reach people that are searching for help? Because that's what they're searching on. So we have to start thinking about the language that people are using, how we can kind of shift the conversation. But certainly if you're looking for content and questions to answer, doing a Google search, searching YouTube, which is the #2 search engine, figuring out what people are talking about and how you're going to address it. Rhodes Scholar was one of my clients, and they are formerly Elder Hostel, and they provide educational trips to older, predominantly women, some men, and they go all over the world, and they have a whole educational arm. And they had a really big social media presence. They had about 100,000 Facebook fans, but no engagement. And they were just kind of throwing things up there and seeing what sticks, and nothing was working. So we did a deep dive into who was following them on Facebook and what these people wanted to see from them. And what we discovered is that it was predominantly women, 70 plus, following them on Facebook. They are these feisty women. They're very independent. They're the kind that are going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and you're never going to tell them that they can't do anything. And they're very into like female empowerment and older people empowerment. So we called this avatar the funky grandma. So now whenever Rhodes Scholar posts anything, they think, would the funky grandma like this? If yes, they'll post it. If no, they won't post it. The misconception is that that's going to exclude everybody else. It doesn't. So I often like a lot of the same things that the funky grandma likes because I'm going to be the funky grandma one day. But it's not exclusive. It just makes your social media content resonate deeply with a certain group of people and just makes them more excited. Like if they see themselves reflected in what you're sharing, you're going to get a lot more engagement. It's not going to exclude everyone else. It's going to exclude the wrong people, people you might not want attracted to your cause, or you might not want commenting on what you're doing. But as long as you're attracting the right people, then you will be able to attract more of the right people. You just have to get that core right people first. So how do you know what channel to be on? And even before I started my presentation this morning, a woman asked me, she raised her hand when I said, you can ask questions. I think I was on the second slide. And she said, so do we need to be on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram? Do we need to be on all of them? Do we need to be on one of them? What one do we need to be on? And I said, that is honestly like me going up to you, like if you don't know me, and me asking you, where should I build my house? Where should I build my house? You would not have any idea how to answer that question. You'd have to ask me probably 10 questions first. Do I like 10 months of winter? Well, no, but yes, because I live in Boston. How important are schools to you? How important is living near the coast? How, all of these questions. So you have to ask those questions when determining your platforms. You have to figure out where your target audience is and what your goal is. And we have to start looking at social media not as this kind of amalgamous like blob, but each channel is its own country. It has its own rules and language and etiquette. And I'm going to Berlin. What day is today? I'm going to Berlin next Friday night. I'm so excited. And I would not buy a Paris handbook to go to Berlin. But that's what we keep doing with social media. We keep thinking what works on Twitter is going to work on Instagram, and it's not true. So that's why I think less is more, because the work that it takes to actually craft a strategy for each channel it's a lot of work. So I always think less is more, but you have to figure out where your audience is and the kind of content you want to create. If you don't have any visual content at all, Instagram's going to be challenging for you. It's not impossible, but it'll be challenging. If you don't ever want to post video, Facebook's going to be challenging. Facebook loves video. So really figuring out the kinds of content that you want to create, who your audience is, and then what the platforms are. So why are we using this platform specifically? So if your boss or your board says, let's get on Pinterest, you can say why, and not just because your niece loves it or you read about it in some trendy magazine. No, that's not good enough. Why this platform? What types of content work on this platform? Like what tends to work here? What voice are we going to have on this platform? Are we going to be casual friendly? What are we going to say? And then how will we measure? What are we going to measure so that we know success? So this is your one-page mini strategy for each platform. These are the questions that you should be answering when designing a strategy for each platform. I'll let you take that picture. Okay. All right, so part 2 of the framework is captivate. So much easier said than done. First thing that you have to do, ignore infographics like this completely. Throw them away. Don't look at them. And also don't read any of those articles. 100 Instagram story statistics marketers need to know. Don't read them. I get sucked into them all the time. I was retweeting all of that, and then I thought, that is the least helpful information that you could read. Who cares? Who cares? 500 million people are on Instagram. Great, awesome. But what does that mean to you? So throw away all of this. And also, we need to reframe the questions we're asking. So one question I always get, how can we cut through the clutter? You can't. You cannot cut through this. If you're trying to cut through this, you can't do it. You can, however, craft content for your target audience and be okay with reaching a small audience. You're never going to reach everybody on YouTube. It's just not going to happen. And the Ice Bucket Challenge is not going to happen again. I will say it right here. I will say it right here. I just don't see lightning striking twice. And can you imagine how much they would have raised if the donate button was active? That's what I always think. I'm like, oh, they would have raised 3 times that. But I just think that the situation we're in right now, lightning cannot strike twice. So we got to stop having those conversations and comparing ourselves and thinking, how can we get a viral video? Because that's not what we should be focused on. So 3 types of content that resonate with audiences on social media. Aristotle actually told us the 3 types of content way before social media. Aristotle wrote a book, How to Persuade and Influence People with Public Speaking. And he said, and I absolutely love this, it's completely appropriate and applicable to social media, the 3 types: ethos, establish credibility. That's why you read the speaker bio before the speaker comes on, right? Or you can read about me on the Fundraising Day Wisconsin website. Who am I to be telling you this? What are my credentials? Where am I coming from? And then pathos is emotion. What kind of emotion are you inspiring in people? Are you eliciting in people? And we'll go through these. And logos is the logical aspect of our brain. So we think that we make decisions based on logic and reason, right? But we don't. We make them based on emotion. So one example would be, I really want a pair of boots at Nordstrom, and I keep thinking about them, and they're really expensive. But if I buy them, because that's my emotional impulse to buy them, then I go home and I say, you know what? They're going to match everything. They're going to travel well. They're not going to scuff. They're a good investment. The logic starts taking over, and we convince ourselves that we're actually logical when we're not. So we do have to have all of these 3 items on our social media. Not all 3 in every post, but a good combination of the 3. So what happens, I think, is that we get stuck almost in ethos. We get stuck telling people we're so great. We are in the community 60 years. Our board chair just got an award, that stuff is fine. But it cannot be the only thing that you're posting, right? And there's creative ways to do it. So sharing stories of changed lives on your website. This is the Denver Rescue Mission. They share them on Facebook. They share them on Instagram. They collect them on their website. And these are stories that actually touch on all three, ethos, pathos, and logos. All the stories do, but that show that they walk the walk, they talk the talk. Answering those frequently asked questions, whether it's in a blog or even just a tweet or an Instagram post. Demonstrating that you're listening, but that you have your, kind of finger on the pulse of the conversation, that you know what people are asking, you know what people are talking about. This is why branding is so important. Branding is so important to ethos because, it takes years to build a brand. It takes 1 second to destroy a brand. The brand is the trust and credibility and affinity that you're building up. It's not your logo. And then why should we listen to you? Why are you trustworthy, right? So people are always asking these questions. Then logos. This is not about your organization. This is about the problem, the cause. Why is this cause important? Why do I need to pay attention to it? Why now? Why is it timely? Why is it urgent? Why is it relevant? This is very, very important. So it is okay to share data. It's okay to share statistics. I just don't want it to be the only thing that you're doing. I want you to mix it in with ethos, which is the emotional nature. But what's the problem? Does the evidence support you? What don't I know? Like shock me and surprise me. I think a good example is I worked with a food pantry in Newton, Massachusetts, which is a very wealthy community in Massachusetts. And actually, when I told my mom that this was my client, she was like, they have a food pantry in Newton? And I was like, yes, that's the problem that we're facing. First of all, everyone thought it was run by the town. They didn't think they needed individual donations. And secondly, nobody thought that there were poor people in need of assistance in Newton. So we had to dispel a lot of those myths by telling stories and sharing data and statistics. So facts and statistics, analogies, authorities, case studies, those can all be effective as long as it's something surprising, as long as it's something a little bit unexpected in your data, because otherwise people will just pass it by. A great video that you can watch when you get the slides, I just don't have time, it's like 5 minutes long. It's called The Girl with the Bellyache, and it starts out with data. So it starts out establishing that there's a problem. There's 400,000 kids who struggle with hunger, and then it brings you into the emotional story of Kate and how Feeding America is helping her. So catching our attention, grabbing attention, sometimes with a statistic can be effective. It can't be the only way that you can do. It can't be the only way you incite people to action, because we all know this as fundraisers. If you're not eliciting an emotion, no one's going to pull out their wallet. So I saw Chelsea Clinton speak at Inbound like 5 years ago, and she said the only way to get anyone to do anything is to make them passionately inspired or pissed off. I was like, that's exactly right. This is way before 2016 that I saw her speak. But it's so right. Like, if you're not making me feel something, I am not going to be motivated to take an action. So you have to make people feel something, especially if you're fundraising. If you want to just round out your content and share the data, the statistics, the ethical nature of what you're doing and build that trust and credibility, that's great. But if you're trying to raise money, if you're trying to get someone to spur someone to an action, then you need to focus on emotions. And that's through storytelling. So we've talked a lot about storytelling. Did anyone go to Tammy Zonker's session? I'm so jealous. I wanted to go. I love Tammy. She's fantastic. So take everything that you learned in Tammy's session, but that's really the way to get to ethos. That's the way to communicate emotion, is through storytelling. And you have to get beyond just a simple recounting, like Johnny came to the after-school program and he got some assistance, and then he got an A on his test, and then he went away. No, that's a recounting of things that happened. We have to start telling our stories in a little bit more of an interesting way. Asking questions, like provocative questions, who will come to my graduation? Thinking about what's going to resonate and grab attention, but also really inspire an emotion, because it's a universal human experience. We all want people at our graduation or any milestone in our life. We want to know that we're important. We want to know that we are loved and respected. And then think about a way you can frame a story that almost like flips the script. That's another great element of storytelling, but element of social media content. So something unexpected, like mom who initially struggled to accept her gay son now stands in at same-sex weddings. So if you have stories, if you have content that surprises and flips the script in that way or represents some kind of transformation, that works really well on social media. People love that. Also, sometimes just sharing a really impactful visual and letting the visual almost tell the story, especially on Instagram, and then maybe having a quote to support it. You don't have to be a copywriter. You don't have to be a novelist in order to elicit an emotion. Often on social media, the image is half the battle. The image and the video are half the battle because you really want to get that emotional response from it. But don't just pull heartstrings, right? So I know you're laughing, and you know what's funny? What if you had a fundraising campaign that people made memes about, like made fun of you for it? I mean, I was looking for this video because I was going to play it, and so you're welcome that I'm not going to play it. But I found all of these memes, and I thought, oh my gosh. First of all, that's kind of awesome because that means a lot of people are talking about it. But no, the second I mentioned this, everyone's like, oh my God, don't play that video. So if you haven't seen it, Sarah McLachlan, by a fire with a dog, Arms of the Angels are playing, and then they play a lot of photography of abused animals and animals in cages and animals looking up at you. And it did raise tens of millions for ASPCA, right? It did. The problem is that everybody now hates it. And once you see it once, you do not want to see it again. And pulling heartstrings just for the sake of pulling heartstrings, it's not a sustainable strategy. It's not a sustainable emotion, you know? You can't constantly just be pulling heartstrings because people don't like to be manipulated and people don't like to take in information that makes them uncomfortable, right? How many of you love British comedy? Do you love British comedy? Okay, good, right? Some of my friends hate it because it's so cringeworthy, you know? It's like they don't want to cringe, they want to just laugh, you know? They don't want to feel awkward or weird. Like people generally don't like things that make them cringe or make them feel uncomfortable or make them feel like they have to do something they don't want to do. So a better strategy is to inspire and to show people what's possible with your storytelling. Charity water is one of the best examples of this. So I just read the book Thirst by Scott Harrison. I don't know if any of you have read that. Scott Harrison's the CEO of Charity Water. He talked about the two pillars of mission of Charity Water. One is to bring clean water to every human on the planet. And the second is to make giving fun. That's honest to God, like the two pillars. So he's equally as invested in making giving fun. And he invented the birthday fundraiser way before Facebook did it. They were doing that years before. What he wanted to do is he wanted to get away from the distended bellies, the photos of the kids with the flies around their eyes. He wanted to get away from that. And he wanted to tell a positive story of what's possible and the transformative nature of what happens to a village and to a people when they get clean water. So he's not showing that. He might show a dirty water like in a glass, you know, just for effect. But he certainly, and Charity Water's motto is just to show what's possible, to show what happens when a village and a community get clean water. So think about how you can change up the heartstring pulling storytelling that we normally do and change it maybe into what's possible because of your organization. Mercy ships also. No, mercy ships, they travel around on a big ship to various ports in Africa, and they fix deformities like cleft palates and goiters. And some of the photos, I've seen the photos, they don't feature those photos usually. The photos are usually taken by other people. They don't dwell on that because that would be shock value and that'd be really exploitative. So they focus a lot on the transformative nature of what they do. Cabera School for Girls, like sometimes all you need is a great visual and a great quote to really compel what you're doing. This is what donors want to see. I've been a donor to Cabera School for Girls for about 3 years now, and they just send me updates like this. And I share them with my daughter, who's 10, and she loves it. You know, she's like, wow, this girl is just like me. So think about, like, we get so wrapped up that our storytelling, our social media have to be perfect, but think about ways that you can just take a little bit of a mission moment. And please have fun. I'll follow Skeletor in Love. Do you guys follow Skeletor in Love? Does everyone know who Skeletor is? Okay. All right. The younger people are like, what? I don't know who Skeletor is. From an 80s cartoon called He-Man. So someone sent me something on Facebook, Skeletor in Love, and I'm obsessed with it. It's just Skeletor, like hanging out in his Snuggie and like having wine, and it's just really funny. And it reminded me of when social media was really fun and enjoyable, as opposed to most of the things we're sharing now. So use emojis, jump on different hashtags. World Emoji Day. Every single one of us has some kind of emoji that defines our organization, right? Or that represents us. So jump on trending topics, cause awareness days. Does anyone follow the TSA on Instagram? Oh, you are in for such a treat. I've already given you so many amazing people to follow. So this is the TSA. Are we cool? We like to think we're cool. We want you to have a pleasant experience at the airport and arrive safely at your destination. But getting caught while trying to fly with marijuana or cannabis-infused products can really harsh your mellow. And then, this is my favorite part, let us be blunt. TSA officers do not search for marijuana or other illegal drugs. Just that their voice on Instagram, they're taking these really heavy topics and making them accessible to a whole different generation. The TSA on Instagram is amazing. Lambda Legal, they're always sharing little inspirational messages. You've got this. Like, it will get better. How do you cope with your family for the holidays? As you prepare, you know what? Here's 5 things you need to do. They understand what their audience is going through and what they're looking for. So being relevant, being human, talking to your audience in this kind of way, this is all what really works on social media. Using Instagram stories. Does anyone use Instagram stories in their life or in their personal life? Anyone? Yeah, I use them too. So Instagram stories, they're the 24-hour disappearing content on Instagram, and they're just behind the scenes. They lift the veil, right? They kind of shed light on what you're doing in the moment. Of course, you can use them in this way. You can actually use them to create educational and informational content. But a lot of nonprofits, they just use them behind the scenes at an event, wearing funny wigs or packing swag bags. Like, I'm thinking of all the Instagram stories that could have been shared for this conference, miking up the speaker, or, getting lunch ready, or packing, doing whatever, getting the name tags ready. Just a little bit of a showcase and in the moment view of your organization, because really we want humans. We want to know they're humans behind the content. We do not want to connect with a brand. I have 5 minutes? Oh, 10 minutes. 15 minutes. Okay. I'm really good with numbers. Another stellar example of social media is the IRS. Like, I know I'm blowing your mind here. The TSA, the IRS, they are amazing. So I would never have known this. I was listening to NPR, and they had their 2 digital leads on, talking about their digital strategy. This was a national news story, the IRS social media strategy. It was so good. So they designed each channel for a specific audience. Their Facebook page, it's designed to connect with accountants and get accountants information that they need. Their Twitter feed is news and really time-sensitive announcements and articles and things like that. Their Instagram account is mostly fun, upbeat videos talking to younger people about tax returns and how to file your tax refund and that kind of stuff. So they have a dedicated strategy of what they want to accomplish, and it's kind of the best example. I really tried hard to find a nonprofit example of it. It was really hard. Okay, third is cultivate. This is where the rubber kind of hits the road. So we'll go through this pretty quickly because you can get this slide. I just use a Google Sheet for my content calendar. The key is just to make sure you're not reinventing the wheel. If you have a member spotlight going up on your blog, think of all the ways that you can repurpose it onto social media. If you're doing an interview at your gala with your board chair, think about the ways that you can repurpose it. So I just want to encourage you to look at everywhere you are and then think about where you can repurpose and reuse information. And I love listening up so much. So these are all just some ideas for you. One great story or piece of content can be repurposed and recycled. You do want to make sure you're crafting it for each channel and that it works for each channel. But that's kind of my best advice. And then your new mantra really is less is more. Doing fewer things with intention is so much better than spreading yourself thin and kind of throwing, spaghetti up against the wall. I also encourage you, I'll send this out. I forgot to send this to Jen and Lisa, but I will send it to them. Creating a policy for your organization. So this is a policy that you put in your handbook, your volunteer orientation, and I have samples, or you can just Google nonprofit. You'll get a ton of examples. But it's important that people understand what's discouraged as well as what's encouraged. So don't have it just be a bunch of legalese that no one will read that just says you can't do this. Try to explain to people what they can do. What do you want them to do on social media for your organization? Or what, use it as a learning moment for your staff and your employees. Like, try to start a conversation around it. I just don't like when social media is kind of siloed away as, not part of the organization. And then your social media studio is in your hand, right? Your phone. You have all the apps, or you have access to all the apps you could possibly need on your phone. There definitely is a place for professional video, right? Like, I am being videoed right now for my speaker reel, right? To entice people to hire me to speak. I'm not gonna post a bunch of my Instagram stories and selfies and get my husband and my kids to take videos of me for my professional speaker reel. I'm going to pay some money to get it done professionally. But in the rest of my life, my social media videos, I just use these tools. I use Canva for graphic design. I use Animoto for most of my videos, where you can actually upload photo and video content that you have, and they'll create a montage, and you can add music and captions and subtitles and all sorts of things. And one mobile app I love is WordSwag. So really, I have 50,000 tools I love, but these are my 3 favorite tools. Canva is life-changing if you don't know anything about graphic design, and I do not. And you can purchase stock photography from them, so you don't get in trouble. Yep. Oh, WordSwag, this is WordSwag right here. You can put text overlay on photos, or it's almost like, I honestly have never been on Tinder, but it's how I imagine Tinder for graphic design. You just swipe through designs until you find one that you like, and then you type in the text. It's even easier than Canva, which is crazy. So you can use your own photos, you can buy their stock photos, whatever you need to do. In terms of social media video, I always think that shorter is better. You need to grab that attention in the first frame. Don't do what I see a lot of people doing. They have their logo and this nice wash, and they have 20 minutes of, it coming in, and no. Just grab attention with that very first frame. Please add subtitles. It's just the right thing to do. Not only from a marketing perspective, because 85% of videos are watched with the sound off, but also it's just from an inclusivity standpoint. Something else that a woman told me this morning, and I don't have her card, I meant to add it to the slide. Email me when I think of it. They created a social media accessibility toolkit, and it's all the different things that you should do to make your website and social media more accessible and inclusive, and it's amazing. Things like adding alt text to all of your photos to describe what the photo is for people that use voice technology on their websites, subtitles, things like that. So all of these things you can probably Google, but what'd you say?
Is that from Independence First?
What'd you say?
Independence First?
I don't know. I have her card. But she said that she has they're a nonprofit, and they have a whole toolkit on their website, and I can't actually wait to get it, and I just haven't had time. So make sure that your social media content is accessible. And authenticity, in my opinion, is better than polish on social media. They're trending away from the heavily filtered, heavily photoshopped photos. And certainly those don't have as much credibility anymore. Social ads, really 5 minutes. They could do 90 minutes on social ads. In order to reach donors, upload your donor list to Facebook. And then you can target and add to just your donors. So that's sort of like Facebook Ads 101. You can upload any email list you want. You can upload new donors. You can upload race, if you have a race donors. You can upload, Libunts, which is my favorite thing, last year but not this year donors. You can upload any kind of segment that you want and target ads to that segment. So it could be a thank you video, right? Or it could be we really hope you'll make another donation this year video. It could be an impact video. whatever you want to share, you can create an ad to match that specific audience. And it's all measurable. That's what I love about social media. You can easily measure what you're doing. You can easily measure the effectiveness. Are people clicking on it? Are they going to the website? Are they making a donation? Are they signing up? What are they doing? I don't really recommend boosting posts for the sake of raising awareness, because like I said before, I'm just not a big fan of raising awareness, just for its own sake. So I would be careful only to spend money on ads if you can definitely say, okay, this person signed up for our event. This person joined our email list. This person made a donation. Like if you can track it to an action, those are the kinds of ads that I personally like, unless it's a thank you ad at the end of the year, because you just might want to thank your donors in that way. But I really believe about social media ads, they should always be in accordance with some other kind of goal. It should never be spending $10 to boost a post here without tracking actually what it's doing at the end of the day. And then some tools for scheduling that I like, some tools for scheduling and dashboards and actually running reports. I use Hootsuite and Buffer, and later it's for Instagram. They all have free accounts depending on how many platforms you're using, how many people you are hooking up to it. And BuzzSumo, yes.
Rumor has it that organic reach is limited if you post through Buffer, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I do have thoughts. Yes. I love that question. The question is, the rumor is that engagement is down if you use a third-party scheduling tool. I've only seen that on Facebook.
Okay.
So I don't ever schedule for Facebook usually. And if I do it within the Facebook page. Twitter, I have not seen that. LinkedIn, I have not seen that. Instagram, I haven't seen it at all. I think later on Instagram have like a thing where they love each other. I don't know. But definitely test it out. So take these with a grain of salt. You don't want to automate everything you're doing. You don't want to schedule out for like 7 weeks because something could happen. You could forget what a post is going, you could forget what you're doing. So take some time to look at the tools and see maybe how they could be best utilized to maybe save you some time, but I wouldn't rely on them. And I really wouldn't use them for Facebook, so that was a really good point. 3 keys to success: consistency, content, and confidence. Social media algorithms reward consistency, whether that's 2 times a week, 3 times a week, whatever it is. Just do one thing and be consistent and try to do it for at least 3 months, and then measure and improve, and then determine whether or not you ever want to do it again, But don't do it for 2 days and then leave, or do it for 2 weeks and leave. It's just not enough time for the algorithm and for the platform to establish that you're there, you're not a spammer, people like you, people want to engage with you. And then, of course, content is hugely important. It's not about us, it's about what our audience wants. And then just have confidence that what you're doing and what you're sharing is actually of value and is going to resonate with your donors, and they're going to want to see it. Okay, now we can take some questions. I've been talking for, I don't know, how many hours? Do we have any questions? Yes.
When you were talking about measuring
Oh, yeah.
can you just expand on that a little bit? Is that just going through Buffer, or is that, how are you
Measuring. Yeah, that's a really great question. I know, I just wish I had more than an hour to talk about social media. We could probably do half an hour on that. But metrics, so what I would do so you don't get overwhelmed is pick 3 metrics to measure, and measure them maybe every week. So whether that is engagement, maybe it's engagement rate. Maybe it is website traffic. You're trying to send website traffic. You can look at that on your website end and see where your traffic is getting referred to. Maybe it's email signups. Maybe it's Facebook donations. So just pick 3 metrics for each site that you use. Depending on your goals, you've got to go back to your goals and measure them consistently. When I used to manage social media accounts for clients, which I don't actually manage them anymore, I would do a weekly list. And then you can start to see trends, and you can start to see where what's working, what's not working. But there are so many metrics you can measure, but I would pick the 3 that best match your goal. Reach is just how many eyeballs saw it. I don't usually think that reach is the most effective one. I usually try something around engagement, something around donations, something around website traffic, depending on your goals.
So when Facebook gives you a little thing and says you could reach more people, but
It will always say that.
is it basically just wanting you to spend?
Have you noticed that it says that on every post?
And it does, and it says
This
things
post is
for-
performing 95% higher than all of your other
and
posts.
There'll be like, we have a Facebook page that is kind of dormant on the off season when we're not running a certain event.
Yes.
And it'll pop up and be like, you can invite more people. Well, the event isn't until April, so I was trying to figure out, so that's just a,
I would not have a page for an event because you're only going to be active in it once a year. Have an event.
yep. We're working on merging. the
Oh,
two.
good. Okay.
We have like so many likes in both camps. And
Oh,
we're trying
yeah.
to put them together, which
Yeah.
has been trouble on its own, but that's another story.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's part of the consistency. It's harder to ramp it up again when you want to ramp it up if you have been dormant for 6 months,
But
right?
we have people who like the event that we haven't been able to convert over to
Yes.
our company or agency page. So that's another story. I'll let someone else.
Okay. All right, we had a question over here. No? Yes?
Reach is it literally
Where's-
just it showed up in somebody's newsfeed?
Yes.
So it has like no bearing on whether or not they stopped or looked at it or could give any
Yep.
semblance of crap.
Yep. Reach.
That's helpful.
Exactly. It literally is like how many eyeballs hit it.
That's the only metric that you can, well, theoretically see in your scrolling feed. It'll tell you
Yes.
reach.
Exactly.
Everything else is hidden in your dashboard.
In the insights and insights. No, I don't think you can change that.
That's the only one.
Well, on Instagram, if you have business tools, you can see how many comments or likes or whatever. You can see like what your highest engaging post is on the post.
Okay.
But on Facebook, no, it's just reach.
Okay.
I know.
Terribly helpful.
No, well, Facebook, I mean, they, like I said before, they answer to their shareholders. So they don't even have, we're like the lowest on the totem pole, unfortunately. I mean, it's just the way that Facebook goes. That's why when everyone was so excited about the charitable donation tools and then realized, oh, wait, we don't get any of that data, Facebook was like, well, sorry, use them or not. 1 minute. So it's kind of a cynical point of view, but I think that the tools are available. You know, with Hootsuite and Buffer, if you link it to your Facebook page, you can get some kind of report and some kind of data. If you use like Sprout Social, that's a pretty advanced platform. I know a lot of small organizations that use Sprout Social, but it's kind of it's almost, you can aggregate all of your social media across it and run reports. The key is just to use the same thing month over month. If you're using Hootsuite, use it for 6 months. You know, don't switch between dashboards month after month. But okay, any other questions? I'll be here after. If you want to come talk to me, I've got some cards, I've got some books, and I'll be here the rest of the day. So thank you so much. Thank you.